Welcome to Fear and Greed, the Sunday edition. It's the 17th of October 2021 and I'm Sean Aylmer. This is our Sunday show where we have a bit of a change of pace and we look at some of our favourite stories from the week. As always, I'm joined by the Fear and Greed team. Adam Lang, good morning.
Good morning to you, Sean.
Michael Thompson, good morning.
Good morning, Sean.
Michael, I'm not going to allow you to say anything else. You always come in with the feedback at this point. But I got some feedback during the week about Fear and Greed, and particularly our relatively new format where you and I talk to each other. One piece of feedback said, I love the fact that you're doing more investment company style stories. So I walked away from that conversation feeling pretty good about myself. I then saw someone later in the day who said, why are you doing so many investment stories now? What do I make of that?
Well, I think that means we've got the balance about right then, isn't it?
Yes.
And I think we're pretty well, we're in the sweet spot, aren't we?
Yeah, maybe that's right. I just thought, by the end of the day, I wasn't sure what to think about that. Now, Michael, I want to ask, how is the newsletter going?
The newsletter is going exceedingly well. Thank you, Sean. We have had a lot of signups this week. This is our relatively new newsletter, which we only launched a couple of weeks ago now. fearandgreed.com.au, jump online to the website and sign up. The thing about the newsletter is that it's not just the news of the day. It's also the things that we've seen over the 24 hours leading up to it, the stories, the articles, things that you might not have seen, things that we think are of interest.
Yeah, I'd call it quirky, Michael. Quirky is how I'd put that newsletter.
Yeah, I think quirky is probably about right. So it's kind of like the Sunday edition every day of the week in your inbox.
I'm not sure that's a promotion or not.
No, it's probably not.
Adamski, I think it should be your turn to pick the safe word of the week. Of course, we like a safe word every time we do the Sunday show because we end up straying into territory that one or potentially all of us feel very uncomfortable about.
Is Adam choosing it because he is the one that needs to use it most?
Yeah.
I never feel that way.
That's so
it has
true.
to be something that you're comfortable saying, Adam, because
Thank
we
you.
believe that you will be the one to exercise it.
He'll need it the most. Thank you. I appreciate good, open and honest feedback as always. So we were spoilt for choice of words for the safe word of the week. I think, though, there is a clear winner and it involved someone, a mature person going to space and back, Shatner.
Oh, pardon? Sorry?
So I think if someone went to space to get away from a situation, Shatner is the word of the week.
William Shatner.
Yes.
Mr. Star Trek. Out of here.
Can I jump in on that one? Because I like that as the choice of a safe word for the week. But Shatner going to space is actually something I wanted to talk to you both about. And I know I'm going off very, very early with a gripe for today. But this all kind of comes back to the fact that it has been a big week for billionaires, for their toys, for gloating over their wealth, and all roads eventually lead to Shatner, which is not me opting out of the conversation. It's just me setting the scene. We've talked a lot about Elon Musk and we've talked about Jeff Bezos. They're in this battle over space tourism, and this is kind of done under the guise of trying to advance humanity. But we know what it is, and it is just a battle between the two of them. Late in the week, Prince William joined in, and I don't know whether you saw this. He had a bit of a crack. And, of course, when a prince has a crack, it's a very polite crack. But he said that we need some of the world's greatest brains and minds fixed on trying to repair this planet, not trying to find the next place to go and live.
Nice call.
Oh, yeah, I think it's a reasonable point. I also don't see why you can't do both. But coming to William Shatner, right? So he was on the New Shepard rocket, so Jeff Bezos, his rocket, in the last few days of the week. There were 3 other passengers on there. They were all corporate executives. One of them was a former NASA engineer, but really they'd all essentially paid for their places there. It leads to my gripe, okay? It is outrageous that these 4 people, William Shatner and 3 others, who have gone into space after probably, a few days of training, staying in a luxury hotel, I would imagine. They were apparently driven to the launch pad by Jeff Bezos himself. It is outrageous that they can call themselves astronauts because Jeff Bezos said, "Welcome back, astronauts." They are not astronauts. This is an insult to real astronauts who spend years studying and training and risking their lives, right, in the advancement of science and humanity more broadly. So, on behalf of the real astronauts of the world, of the Neil Armstrongs and the Buzz Aldrins and the Australian Andy Thomas, I am offended and outraged.
On behalf of the real astronauts, are you an astronaut? Have you spent 10 minutes in space just like William Shatner did?
Well, no, but you know what? It's becoming increasingly apparent that the astronauts need someone to speak for them. And I believe I am that person.
Self-proclaimed representative Michael.
Do the astronauts have a union, do you reckon?
The Union of Astronauts.
That's right.
I wonder.
Wouldn't be very big.
No.
Well, it's getting bigger now. If Jeff Bezos has anything to do with it, everyone can join the Union of Astronauts.
You actually forgot Richard Branson as well, because he's in that space race too. And you'd put him in the same sort of category, I think.
Does he call himself an astronaut? Probably.
I don't know.
I'll add him to my list, to my gripe.
Michael, do you think there's a bit of an overlap between what the royal message was in that the exploration of space and saving the planet? Isn't it so often that when astronauts, qualified or not, come back, they almost unilaterally say how beautiful the planet is and how much it made them appreciate it and how much we've got to preserve it? So is there a bit of an overlap in the Venn diagrams there?
Oh, I suspect there is. And I also admire, Adam, your attempt to draw a more serious point out of what was a fairly petty gripe on behalf of the world's astronauts and cosmonauts. I'm not excluding the Russians from this.
Now, I am going to drag this into something that is serious because it is a segue into the climate change debate. And Prince William, you said, talked about it. Prince Charles did as well. By the way, I really look forward to Prince Charles being Australia's king. Now, I hope the Queen lives for a long, long time, but could you have a wacky king like Prince Charles? Won't that be fun? I mean, it'd be good for the Australian Republican movement. We've had Peter Fitzsimons on recent, but I just can't wait to have a wacky guy like Charles as our king. I digress. He was talking about climate change, and he was talking about the fact he was surprised that Scott Morrison might not be going to COP26. That's the United Nations Climate Change Summit starting in Glasgow on the 1st of November. The PM then announced on Friday that he would be attending the conference. I think this week was such an important week in terms of where Australia is going on climate change, not so much because we changed direction, but I think the public and particularly the political parties are now realising that you just have to be on board zero emissions, and if you're not, you're actually going to struggle at the polls. Now, part of this is the fact that all the media, including news, is now on board. You've got the Reserve Bank this week coming out. You've got business leaders pushing it hard. Business Council of Australia, Andrew Forrest from Fortescue Metals. I think the politicians, even the nationals, who are now sounding as if they've got to get somewhere down the pathway, I just think it's been a really big week for changing the mood in Canberra around climate change. What do you think, Adamski?
I think you're exactly right. It's been almost 20 years in the making, hasn't it? And even today, the Nationals will get together and discuss what their response is going to be. We might even have an evolution of the story. There might even be something towards a coalition policy. But I think the Liberals, Labor, we've really stuffed around with this for so long, and it's been up to business and other voices to say, we need it. We need that clarity. And I think it's desperately wanting. So it's been a long time coming. I hope it really does hit home soon. It's a necessity in my view.
Mickey T, how about we all buy into nuclear power, Japan style?
It is the debate that I think is probably brewing. And you mentioned Japan, and it did come up early in the week that the new Prime Minister in Japan basically said they need to be re-engaging with nuclear power. If Japan wants to meet its fairly aggressive emissions targets, then they need to get back on board with nuclear power. They basically stopped all nuclear power plants in Japan within about 2 years of the Fukushima disaster, which was just over a decade ago now. And so that's a really kind of live debate now in Japan. And I think it's probably one that is going to be happening in the next little while in Australia. Scott Morrison was pretty quick to say that the decision to get nuclear-powered submarines as part of the AUKUS deal did not mean that we were looking at nuclear power for the national grid. But we have, I think a third of the world's uranium.
Have you seen the price of uranium in the last couple of months?
Yeah, it's extraordinary.
Through the roof.
It is extraordinary. And so in terms of the materials needed for it, we would be almost self-sufficient. And the emissions are substantially less than traditional fossil fuels. And Japan has acknowledged that they're not going to be able to get to where they need to be using just other conventional renewables like solar and wind. And so I just think if you're going to be looking at the future, you need to discuss all the options. You can't just say we're going to try and get to, say, net zero by 2050 without considering something, just saying that, no, nuclear is completely off the table. It needs to be part of a rational conversation.
Yeah. Okay. I want to change tack a bit. Corruption in the country, particularly in Victoria and New South Wales. So we have ICAC hearings starting in which Gladys Berejiklian will appear. Obviously, she stepped down as Premier of New South Wales a couple of weeks ago as a result. But the IBAC hearing in Victoria is starting to claim people as well. Adam Somyurek is under the gun because of branch stacking in the Victorian Liberal Party. So too Daniel Andrews, though he's not admitting to anything. Anthony Byrne, the federal MP. Adamski, what do you think about this process? It's not actually illegal branch stacking, interestingly enough, but boy, it's a bad look.
I agree. It's been an incredibly bad history for, I guess, all political parties, really. The illegal part comes in when taxpayer funds are misused to support that practice of branch stacking. But it just shows you that the kind of the win-at-all-costs mentality, even in politics. Now, people going into politics, you'd really hope that they were purpose-driven, that they were there to do good, to make improvements to society. But at some point, it seems to just become about the win. And, that purpose gets overridden by the desire to win. And that's where it seems branch stacking has been almost an accepted practice. It's got to go. It's a ridiculous compromise on democracy.
Yeah. Mickey, I mean, you know a little bit about Adam Somyurek, don't you?
Was that a stitch up or what just then?
It is. I've got to tell you, listeners, this week I learned something very interesting about Michael Thompson, who has been in the audio game, radio primarily, for many, many years. And as you know, he and I do the show together in the mornings now. And we're doing a story about Adam Somyurek. And Michael stopped before doing it and said, is it Adam Somyurek or Adem Somyurek? And I said, I'm not sure. It's ADEM is the actual spelling of it. And Michael's response was, I'll just say it fast. Since when can you get in audio, can you get away with just saying it fast? I'm sorry, Murak.
Well, I can't now that you've given away the secret.
Well, I was astounded that someone as experienced as you, Michael, would actually rely on something as sort of base as saying the name fast to hide the fact that you know how to pronounce it.
Well, okay. I'm just going to defend myself quickly.
Is there a need for a Shatner here?
Not yet. I want to hear this.
Okay. I had actually checked a number of sources and they did seem to almost alternate between Adem and Adam. And I thought, I don't want to get this wrong. I don't know which one is exactly right because depending on which source you listen to it. So there are two options. Three options. One, you can actually just get it right. But then the next one is to say it quickly and no one really notices. The third option is to just turn away from the mic slightly when you say it and it just muffles it just enough that no one's like, oh, did he say it right? Oh, well, moving on. And the podcast moves on and flows past that point. So these were the secrets that I was relying on, the secrets that you have now exposed to the world, Sean. So thank you for making every podcaster's job just that little bit harder.
Well, now hold on. I'm coming right back at you here, Mickey. What happens when I have to say someone's name like Shamara Wickramanayaka, who is the Macquarie Bank CEO? Do you know how long I spent getting Wickramanayaka worked out?
Well, and even then, I don't think you've quite got it right. Because, so you
Give
know,
me a break.
While you're there attempting it, I'm there researching the pronunciation. I finally found a video on YouTube where the Macquarie Bank CEO introduced herself. And so I thought that is the perfect source. And none of us, not me, not you, not Adam, have ever gotten it quite right. It is slightly different.
But at least I haven't tried to rush it so that no one would understand what I was saying, which is what you did with Adam Samurek.
Shatner, I'm out.
I want to talk about the unexpected consequences of COVID. So we had a couple of really interesting stories this week. Chocolate. So cocoa prices are rising again, up 6% in North America, Europe and Asia. It's because demand for chocolate has gone through the roof in the last couple of months as people are travelling again. What I didn't know is that there's a huge amount of chocolate sold through duty-free shops. So when people weren't travelling, they weren't selling chocolate, less demand, prices fell. I thought that was really cool.
That's got to be rubbish.
No, it's true. Then there was the avocado story. Basically, there's a glut of avocados. The reason there's a glut of avocados in Australia is there's more plantings. That's part of it. But also, people aren't going to their cafes and having smashed avocado for breakfast. As a result, the demand's not there. Supply is big. I think that's really another little consequence of COVID that we haven't thought much about.
But you can't tell me, though, Sean, that everybody stuck in lockdown has not increased their chocolate consumption. It is a comfort food that people, they can't go anywhere else. They're going to watch a lot more TV. They're going to really overindulge in the streaming services. They're going to be drinking more. And what are they going to do? They're going to eat more chocolate. I'm calling BS.
So, Michael, comfort food, and maybe there's some of us amongst us, even on this podcast, that bring the average up for chocolate consumption. So let's just, say theoretically the three of us are in it. What is your favourite delivery mechanism for comfort food? I would have to say in chocolate, recent times, the big thumping blocks of Toblerone and those big chunks, they are amazing.
Special too.
I try and hold myself to one, but it's difficult.
One block or one triangle?
One big triangle.
Oh, okay.
So Toblerone is your chocolate of choice, Adam?
It is at the moment.
I didn't realise you'd turned 75.
Have it with my cocoa.
I would understand it, though, if Toblerone sales had dropped off because people weren't travelling, because the only people that ever buy it are those who are buying it duty-free.
That is a really good point. I think I'm going to get on board with you on this one, Michael, but I do want to know what your favourite chocolate is.
Okay, there is a new mint Kit Kat block.
Oh,
no.
My family hate it, which is great. Because when I buy it, I'm the only one that eats it.
It is extraordinary, and Kit Kat have mastered it. I mean, I'm sure they've just been waiting for me to praise them. They have absolutely nailed the recipe here, and we go through block after block after block. It is extraordinary.
Well, I'm a Rocky Road fan, but the only Rocky Road that is worth it. Anyone?
Darryl Lee.
Absolutely.
Hagues?
Thanks, Adam. Michael, you're right again. Darryl Lee, Rocky Road.
Oh, come on. Hagues versus Darryl Lee. Hagues got to win that one.
Oh, so what was Hagues chocolate? Very expensive. Everyone raves about it. I'm not sure it's there.
You know why? It's because Adam is originally from Adelaide and Hagues is an Adelaide creation. It's just a parochial thing here.
He's not from Adelaide, is he?
Yeah, originally.
No, we went through the whole thing last week. It was West Australia and London for a couple of years and Goulburn and Sydney. And
peripatetic lifestyle, Sean, remember?
Peripatetic, that was the word that we didn't understand. What? But are you really from Adelaide as well?
I was born in a small country town called Keith.
Really?
in South Australia.
Oh, there we go.
It's not a big population. There's no Hague's chocolate store either. So I'd like to say that my love of Hague's is quite independent.
Anyway.
And well-informed.
Can I get back to what I was trying to say? These unexpected consequences of COVID, I think, are really interesting. Like the rise of the power of the delivery guy. So no one really cared about the delivery person, but now we rely on them so much. And have you seen the amount of industrial action taken place in the last few weeks by delivery drivers?
I have.
All of a sudden.
Not impressed.
Ben Willey from Spinach Advertising Agency during the week was one of my guests, and he talked about the whole consumer preference for local shopping. And, for example, in my local area, there's a Woolworths Metro going in, which would never have been thought of 2 years ago. But now people want to shop local. So we're getting all these smaller supermarkets in the local area. I just think it's really amazing the stuff that's happened as a result of COVID that no one would have expected.
But how long is the shop local movement going to last? Once things start to get back to normal, surely people are going to be driven by price into larger shops, but also they'll be going online, and nobody in 10 years' time is going to actually go into a supermarket on a Sunday and do a big grocery shop and put themselves through 90 torturous minutes of battling other people and their trolleys and their kids. They're just going to do it online. Then they're going to do their click and collect.
Maybe you're right. I was in a shopping centre during the week, and I live in Sydney, and so it had been reopened in Sydney, and it was amazing how many boarded up shops there were. This is a major shopping centre in Sydney, and it was incredible how many shops are boarded up. And that kind of coming back to the whole shopping local thing, I reckon, Michael, people will shop online, and maybe the malls are the ones to struggle, but there still is a reason to go and shop in a grocery store. Some of us actually like to browse supermarkets, but I would prefer to do it in my local smaller supermarket than actually go into a big mall.
Yeah, browsing, I get that, but do it online. That's why it's called a browser.
Shatner. Just Shatner.
Okay, now, Adamski, you're a man with children. You're very excited that they're going back to school. We've seen reopening in New South Wales and the ACT during the past week. Daniel Andrews seems determined to open Victoria, notwithstanding the numbers. What's all this mean in the run into Christmas, do you think?
Well, so Christmas is traditionally when, if you're in retail, you can make between sort of a quarter and a third of all your money for the year in that period. Hospitality venues are often the same. There's a lot of businesses that depend on that Christmas run-in. And in the last year, we didn't really have the same sort of experience last year with Christmas. And this one, with Victoria coming on board, it might mean that together across the country in the course of the next month, we're going to start seeing everyone come out of lockdown, everyone being able to do the things they want to do, children going back to school, universities attending, sports even being played, community and school. It's starting in a hurry through all this great vaccination success that we're going to get back to almost normal soon. So there's, on the one hand, we've got all the excitement and the joy of being able to do the things that we wanted to do again. And then on the other hand, like Alan Oster mentioned in your interview with him on Friday, Sean, there's these savings there. And as we come out of lockdown, how are we going to spend them? And that's yet to be seen. But you'd love to think that for all those venues that have been had to hold back and be locked down, and for all those stores that have been getting stock and hoping that they can get some trade in for this year, that this next 12 weeks could be really good. And I really hope it will be. But what are you seeing, Sean? What do you think?
It's beginning to look a lot like Christmas.
Shatner.
Copyright infringement.
Yes, I'll speak for everybody when I say, please, Shatner.
I really hope you edit this out.
It's called revenge. It's staying in, Sean.
It's like revenge spending.
Oh, dear. Look, Adam, I think you're right. I think the next 3 months is actually quite exciting for the economy. I think there are real concerns that when things open up and we still get these big numbers of COVID cases, it will scare some people. But I really think the fact that there's so much pent-up demand. People do have savings. People want to spend money. Businesses want to invest. People want to forget COVID-19. They want to put it in the rear-vision mirror. And so I actually think the run up to Christmas will be really upbeat as long as we don't have massive numbers of new cases. And we shouldn't, simply because the vaccination rollout has done so well.
Yeah, I agree. I think, and one of the other stats that blows me away this week too is the first vaccination rate in the ACT. And I know, Michael, you've mentioned this before. It's stunning. It's like everyone's getting it. And the second dose is coming right behind it. So it could be a case like the ACT is like no restrictions at all pretty soon.
Yeah, imagine being at 99%. That is extraordinary. Wow. It makes you wonder who the 1% is and what kind of pressure they're under to comply. It's pretty extraordinary.
Those last clenched fists of anti-vaxxing.
Indeed. Now, I feel like we're drawing to a close, and I want to finish, Sean, with an apology to you. I owe you an apology from a few weeks ago.
Here we go.
No, this is a legitimate apology. A few weeks ago, I declared that Schitt's Creek is one of the best shows ever, and I stand by that, and I think we all agree that it is an excellent show. But I also said that Hacks was probably the best thing that is streaming at the moment. You insisted quite passionately that Ted Lasso just blew everything else pretty much out of the water and that it was a deserving winner at the Emmys. We finally started watching it through the week.
And?
You were completely right. I owe you an apology, although the fact that we started watching it through the week, and you know how when you just go, we'll just watch one more, it's only half an hour. We get up very early for the podcast and the newsletter, and when it suddenly hits midnight and you're still watching Ted Lasso and you're getting up in a few hours' time, I say, Sean, you perhaps owe me the apology.
I'll give that to you, but you're right. It's a cracking show. I must say season 2 disappointed me a bit, but season 1, really, really good.
Oh, it's fantastic. Don't tell me that season 2 is disappointing. We're approaching season 2 now, and I was hoping it would be as good as the first.
I don't want to keep up your expectations. It's good. Look, I think that probably brings us to the end of it. Thank you very much for joining us, Mickey T.
Thank you, Sean.
And Adamski.
Thank you kindly, Sean.
You've all been listening to the Fear and Greed Sunday edition. It's the 17th of October, 2021. I'm Sean Aylmer. Enjoy your Sunday. We'll be back tomorrow.